Hello, this is Bret Hayworth with the Sioux City Journal. I'm joined today by J.D. Scholten, who is the Democrat running for the Iowa 4th Congressional District. Thank you for coming in, J.D.
Thank you for having me.
I'm conducting an interview on behalf of the Journal's editorial board. The members are also present here in the room, and they're considering an endorsement in the Iowa 4th race. So not only is Mr. Scholten running, but also Randy Feenstra, who's a Republican. He's a state senator from Hull, is also in the race. So, and as we again, thank you for coming in. And as we get started here, how's your campaigning going? I think I saw the Sioux City Sioux out front. Yep. How do you campaign in the time of coronavirus?
You know, it's been difficult. It's a change for us. So much of our campaign last cycle and this cycle is getting out there to the people. We just finished a 374 town tour. We stopped at every single town in this district. We held about 16 parking lot rallies where the Sioux City Sioux is in the background. We have a pickup truck. I get on the back of the pickup truck, and it's pretty much a town hall. We have a radio broadcast, a radio transmitter that broadcasts to a low frequency, and people can ask us questions. You know, last fall, before the pandemic, we went to every county and did a Don't Forget About Us tour in towns of under 1,000 people. We held town halls. And that's so much of our MO that it's been difficult, but the last 2 months I've been on the road. We've been doing it in a safe way, masking up and trying to social distance. In fact, the other day I caught myself in a cow pasture with my mask on, and just how used to it we are at this point.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you're making inroads in connecting with people in spite of the limitations or whatever?
I mean, the best we can. It's weird because last cycle I felt I had a very good pulse of everything. Now it's just another step away, so we don't know. I think there's so many different things going into this election cycle, especially when you have the presidential and the Senate race that are very prominent in the news and everything. It's been a little bit more difficult to break through in a lot of ways and get our message out there, but overall I think it's been good.
And let's kind of go there. You mentioned last time you were running against Congressman Steve King, mm-hmm. who's the incumbent, who's still in office for a few more months here after the election, even. But at that point, he was, I guess, a 7-term congressman or 8-term congressman. Yeah, and he's leaving after 9 terms. He was on the ballot against you. How much did you talk about Steve King in that election cycle, and is it different not having him in this campaign? And how has that changed how you campaign?
So last cycle, if you went to any of our town halls, I barely mentioned him other than the fact that we were running against him. I think it'd be very easy for a Democrat just to bash the other side, but I mean, that's part of what I'm running against, is that sense of modern politics, just where we raise a ridiculous amount of money just to bash the other side. I think that's wrong. And so much of our campaign has been grassroots from the very get-go and talking about what we're for and not just who we're against. And I think that was a huge part of our success last time. And we got 25,000 more votes than there are even registered Democrats in the district. This time, it's different. It's not better. It's not worse for us. I think I match up, if you have a scouting report against Congressman King and Senator Feenstra, I think I match up better against Senator Feenstra in the fact that we have the experience from last cycle, but you know, Congressman King, if you take all the controversy aside, which isn't easy to do, but if you do, you're left with kind of an anti-establishment candidate, and that's kind of our mold too. You know, I don't take corporate PAC money. I turned down the DCCC and the help from DC on the Democratic side. I said no because I want this race to be run out of Sioux City and not Washington D.C. And so I feel like what we do in our campaign matches up really well right now.
Last time we talked was a few weeks ago, and going again to a point that you just made there, we talked about campaign fundraising. Mm-hmm. And at this point, so we're sitting basically 3.5 weeks out from the election. At this point, 2 years ago, there was a lot of money from a lot of Democratic national groups that was coming into the race.
Not yet, though.
Was it even later in October?
It was literally the last week.
Okay.
Because I looked at our fundraising last time, and we only had, we had $700,002, I think, or $702,000 in Q3 last time, which is a good amount of sum, but like we raised $1 million in that last week. That's where the big change, and so everything came really late.
Okay. So there's not maybe a sense that it's dried up or that less money is coming? Okay. I was going to ask about campaign finance, so let's just go
Yeah.
there now. You've been out raising Senator Feenstra the last few campaign quarters.
Mm-hmm.
How much will you likely raise over the 2-year cycle when it's all said and done?
We'll be close to 3 million, I think.
Okay. And how are you spending it? I believe you have a new ad out today.
Yep, we have, we're on television, radio, newspaper ads. I think we were in the Journal on Sunday, or will be this Sunday, I can't remember quite. And I think strong field program as well. Yeah, just like basic things, like digital, like pretty much everything,
Okay.
you know.
And how important are television ad buys in a time of coronavirus?
I think people are in tuned. You know, I think what we try to do is different touches, and I think the big difference between running last time and running this time, I mean, there's 7 different media markets in this district, 39 counties, it's massive. And so how do we touch like Chickasaw County, you know, and in those 3 counties that are based out of Waterloo TV, and these are some of the things. Last time, we were able to play in everywhere because of that money came in late. So now we've had this strategy of, you know, if we're not going to be there as much on television, then we're going to be there more on mail, we're going to be there on other platforms as well. And so we like to call touches, but the other part of it too is how do you break through in a time like this? It's showing up, you know. We've earned a lot of media because we've shown up to every single town in this district and talk on the local radio, talk to the local newspapers, and I think that's a huge advantage on our side.
Okay. Senator Feenstra has legislative experience. He's been a state senator for many years. You've not served in elective office before, and there's certainly a lot of skills that are involved in being a federal legislator, a congressman. What if you have none of those experiences? Why should you be a congressman? You know, what skill set do you have that would make you work for that?
I think the biggest thing is understanding what the district needs, and you understand by showing up. You know, I didn't hire a pollster, I didn't hire a consultant to tell me what to say. We went out and originally in my car and went from town to town and county to county, and now we got the RV that's been on the road for a few years now, and I think that's what's missing is we had in politics, especially folks out in DC, the system is set up for people with wealth to be elected and to raise these crazy amount of money on these campaigns. You need to know how to raise money, and I feel because we elect so many wealthy people, it really does a disservice to working class people. And so that's what my campaign's trying to be different, trying to break the mold. And we need more elected officials who are working class people. And so that's what I bring to the table. And, you know, if we continue with the status quo, you know, a lot of people are frustrated with what's happening out in DC. And Congress tends to have one of the worst approval ratings out of any elected office. And so, you know, Senator Feenstra was down in Des Moines for a while, but I mean, you know, he represents a very small corner in this huge district, and I think what this district needs is somebody who understands everywhere, urban, rural, whether you're from Woodbury County or Hardin County. I think you need to understand the needs.
As far as the nuts and bolts of introducing legislation, shepherding it through, you know, talking to colleagues to get support, what's in your, do you feel like you have a skill set that could do that?
Oh, absolutely. I've always been a bridge, whether it's in baseball or working as a paralegal, working between clients and attorneys, you know. I've always been a bridge, and one of the things during this caucus, when we had 20 people run for presidency, I worked on several of the rural policies, and I've worked enforcing our antitrust laws in agriculture into every single one of those policies, and then other people picked up. So I think every one of the 20-some candidates, other than maybe one, had enforcing our antitrust laws, and that came from a lot of the work I did.
And these are statistics. I'm about to share some statistics that you know very well, but the Iowa 4th Congressional District is by far the most Republican of the 4 in Iowa. The margin is more than 70,000 more Republicans than Democrats. As a Democrat, how do you get votes win to potentially win in this type of this congressional district. Sorry, excuse me.
No, I mean, it's showing up, you know. If I just did the DCCC model of stay in my house and fundraise all day and throw a bunch of ads on TV, I have no chance. But when you go out there and build relationships like we did last cycle, like we continue to do this cycle, I mean, we stopped in so many places where people even told me, I voted for Steve King last time, but you have my vote because you showed up. And just a lot of stories like that. You know, we got 25,000 more votes than there were Democrats last cycle. And that's not just because it was anti-Steve King, it was also we showed up when we stood for something. And you look back on the history of this district, and my two political heroes, Tom Harkin and Berkeley Bedell, they used to represent this district. And they did it the same way. They showed up, they had a message, they proved they were trustworthy, and they earned votes, and we plan to do that again now.
Could you go back and recap the number of joint appearances that you've had with Randy Feenstra?
Yeah.
Have there been debates? Have there been forums? What venues have you been at that you?
So we have done. There was one up in Spencer where a bunch of the news up there had one, but it was with Joni Ernst, Senator Ernst, Feenstra, and myself. And so that was just kind of a forum. We've had 3, 1 virtual and 2 in person with the Iowa corn growers, and that was just for their membership. So we have not had a public debate. I know you guys offered one, we said yes. KCCI and KTIV, they said yes. We said yes, they said no. They've said no to every single one. Iowa Press, we were on last week, so we said yes, they said no. And there's about 6 other ones. Iowa Falls paper, I know, had one. And so, you know, we're still trying to get one done. I don't think it's official yet, but WHO is we're working on that. I think the details, we're trying to work out the details, but they offered one for October 2nd, and we said yes to that. And here we are, voting's already happened. I mean, even just look at just answering people's questions. I don't think Senator Feenstra's ever held a town hall. I don't think he's, at least this cycle, has not done anything where a Democrat could ask him a question. Where we have, at all our events, we invite Democrats, independents, Republicans, people who've never voted before, and we open it up.
Do you think a debate will happen based on all those factors that you just mentioned?
I mean, if it does, it shows that the polls are a lot closer than what most people think. I mean, our internal polling shows this is a neck-and-neck race, and I think some of the polling that happened early on, right after the primary, were deeply flawed. The Monmouth poll showed that 5% of Democrats were going to be voting for him. I don't think that's the case at all.
Okay. And what do you mean by what you said a few seconds ago, that he is choosing, because it's a tight race, not to debate you?
No, I think if we do have a debate, it shows that he's panicking a little bit and that he's willing to do it. I mean, if there's no reason to debate because he thinks he's way ahead, he would not do it.
Okay. Let's turn to some issues. I asked this of a lot of candidates, so as you've been campaigning, Mr. Scholten, what 2 issues, let's try to keep it to 2, what 2 issues do you hear as top of mind from people in the 39 counties?
Yeah, so on the back of our baseball cards, we have our 5 campaign promises. I won't go through all 5, but we talk about fix, fight, and secure. So I'll break it down just to 2. So fix healthcare and fight for an economy that works for everyone and secure democracy. But I think the 2 I think that are most important, healthcare and cleaning up the special interests. Everything that we talk about, everything we're passionate about, and I'm here out there, whether it's in agriculture, whether about workers not getting a fair wage, whether so many parts of this. It goes back to the special influence that's dictating our democracy out in DC. And so we need campaign finance reform. We need to make sure the revolving door between lobbyists and members of Congress and vice versa gets stopped. We just need to clean things up to get this back to a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And along with that, getting more working class people out there.
So the last campaign finance package that went through was overturned by the Supreme Court, I think, like in 2010. The Citizens United.
Yeah.
what hope do you have for the things that you mentioned, that legislation that would not run afoul of that court ruling, or?
The House passed something this year that the Senate's not picking up with HR 1 on cleaning things up. I'm not 100% sure all of that's what's in there, but I know that goes a long way with a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. So when I go to all 374 towns, one of the number one things, it doesn't matter, Democrat, Independent, Republican, people always say, I'm just frustrated with how things are just backed up and things aren't getting done. Well, what I've seen in the last few years is people, when they get elected to office, are expected to fundraise out there as much as anything else. And so legislatively, they, like for a hearing, for example, if I'm in a hearing, I have my 5 minutes worth of questions. I go 5 minutes, I don't stick around to hear any of the other questions. I'm expected to go across the street and fundraise. And we gotta get money out of politics so we can focus on the people, focus on why we're there. And I think that goes a long way.
Have you seen, Western Iowa is more conservative than other parts of the state. Have you seen a difference from Western Iowa, or perhaps the more eastern part of the 39 counties, in what people are talking about, issues of importance to them that you've heard?
I think the only thing, especially because we have gone to smaller towns and put more emphasis on going everywhere, we hear a lot more rural issues, and we hear a lot more agricultural issues. And so, I mean, I was preaching last time about enforcing our antitrust laws in agriculture, and I don't think that was picked up as much. Like the people who it affects dramatically, because right now we have farmers doing everything right and struggling to get ahead and not even making cost of production. So I'd say, it doesn't matter if you're hundreds of acres or thousands of acres, doesn't matter if you're hundreds of head of livestock or thousands of head, you should have a chance to succeed. And we've seen this in this pandemic, where consumers are paying the most they ever have for meat. You have workers here in Sioux City getting the same wage as when my family moved from Nevada to Sioux City in 1984, and then you have farmers getting squeezed on the other end. And so our campaign's going out there and building this coalition of consumers, of workers, and of farmers. And so that is one of the large things that I'm hearing out there.
Okay. The new Green Deal. Do you support the new Green, Green New Deal? Sorry, I think I have it backwards, right? The Green New Deal, as it's written. It's a bill that's in the House.
It's not even a bill. It's a non-binary resolution. And so here's the issue. And at one of our first forum, which is virtual, the Iowa corn growers, Randy started talking about this. And I cut him off and I said, I don't support it. There's nowhere that shows that I support it. And so, and yet a few days later he starts with his ad. His first ad in the general election was an attack ad on me saying I'm for it. And so I thought that was pretty BS. But go back to the Green New Deal. So when it was launched by coastal folks who didn't include farmers in rural communities. And so for me, that is a stop. Like I can't support something if you don't include our rural communities and our farming communities.
Okay, so when Feenstra says that this would drive up prices and such, you're saying you're not for it. It's a concept, not a...
Right. Well, and also prove how does it drive up prices? Like, you don't hear anything like that. You just hear that, oh, this is going to hurt families. Well, how?
Okay. What's your opinion on climate change then, and what if anything should be done?
The first thing we need to do is enforce our antitrust law so we can empower our farmers. Right now, you have out of state, out of country, multinational corporations dictating what's happening on our soil and bullying our farmers. So first we got to empower them. The second part is, let's pay our farmers for their environmental services. And this is getting more and more picked up and more steam behind it. One, if a farmer is struggling to get out of the red on their balance sheet, they don't have the money to adapt. So let's create on-ramps, whether it's buffer strips, whether it's terraces, whether it's cover crops. Let's sink the carbon out of the air and put it into our soil that would promote soil health. The other part of it is we should pay our farmers for their environmental services as a solution for something a little bit longer than just, we have the on-ramp and then we have the long-term vision.
Okay. Do you campaign with, you said 2 years ago you didn't talk much about Congressman King himself. Are you campaigning with dissenting comments about President Trump, who's up for re-election this year?
I barely even talk about him. In fact, if I do, it's about the RFS, the renewable fuel standard that's been abused by this administration, which has depressed our corn prices. If I do, it's because of the trade wars that have depressed. We're borrowing money from China for the last 3 years, giving it to our farmers to not sell their products to China. Even right now with the phase 1 deal, we're billions of dollars behind. And even if we match and get everything that was in the agreement, we are at best where we were at before the trade war. And so with the global supply chain changing to China. And so this is what a huge part of it is we got to figure out what is the role, because we're the second most agriculture producing district in America. We got to figure out the role of the American farmer in globalization, because right now these multinational corporations that sell Iowa beans to China also are the ones that are selling Brazilian beans to China. So they're going to profit one way or the other. How are we as the Iowans and the Iowa worker? And so this is, I think, one of the biggest things that DC has not addressed whatsoever, and this is why we continually have more and more income inequality, is the fact that, or the idea in our economy is, how does globalization work as it affects the working class? So that means, what does the American worker, what is their role to play in all this? What is the American farmer's role to play in all this? And I don't think that's being addressed whatsoever.
Okay, and back to what I was asking about President Trump. Do you have a sense for how popular he is as you campaign, for whether people, if you're not bringing him up, do people bring him up? And then I guess the question is, do you feel like he'll have positive or negative coattails for down-ticket Republicans such as Randy Feenstra?
Yet to be determined. This district went for him for 27% last time. I don't think he'll get that, and in fact, our polling suggests he won't get half that, or about half that right now. And so it's hard to tell. I've been very clear. It doesn't matter who the presidency, who wins it. If I win, I'm going to have to work with and mostly fight whoever's there, because I'm fighting the status quo. You see somebody like Randy, like he's just going to be, and this is coming out from the Republican primary. They said he's bought and paid for, and you look at where he gets his money, and it's big pharma. It is the MCOs that we privatize Medicaid, and it's
for people who don't know, MCOs are
the privatization of Medicaid. It's the companies that did all that, the organizations that did all that. And so this is what we're seeing. This is straight from what Congressman King said, what Jeremy Taylor said, what Brent Richards said, and that's what we're getting in Randy. And we have far too many career politicians who have sold out the American worker, who have sold out the American farmer, and that's what I'm worried about if this district chooses to go with him.
Okay, and just to wrap up, how do you win? What is your recipe for a winning outcome on November 3rd, and why should someone vote for you?
Yeah, so, if this election was solely on how hard you worked and if you showed up and listened to people, we'd win easily. And we've gone to every single county so many times and just listened and engaged with folks. Our pathway to the victory, it's grassroots campaign. It gets thrown around a lot these days, but I literally just got done with my RV, sleeping in different state parks all throughout the district, engaging with people all over the political spectrum. And this district in Iowa traditionally are very independent thinkers and free thinkers, and they used to vote on the person and not just the party, and that's what we had when we had Harkin for 30 years and Grassley at the same time. And so I think there is an opportunity here for our campaign. I think a lot of the same people who wrote us off last cycle are writing us off again, and I think we're going to surprise a lot of people, because there is a frustration out there. This district hasn't bounced back since the 2008 economic crisis. And there is an economic pain out there, and our campaign is trying to show solutions. We talk about issues. We're not just, I'm not just here bashing the other side, I'm talking about what we're for. And I feel that that is missing in modern politics. And I think that's what we're engaging with folks. And so, you know, a lot of people gave us a lot of credit last time for coming so close. But I did this again because I felt there was unfinished business. My goal was never to just beat Steve King. My goal is to represent the people of this district. And that's what we continually do by showing up, listening, and engaging with people where they're at. And I made that promise. In fact, I'll go through my first two campaign promises is Iowans over political party, and two, I'll always show up. And I think folks realized last cycle and this cycle that's the case. I'll show up.
Okay. Thank you for coming in today, and thank you for making your opinions known, your stances known for the Journal readers.
Thank you. Oh, I will just add, I would like to remind you that we said yes to the Sioux City Journal debate, and I appreciate the editorial board's writing that Senator Feenstra was pretty extreme on the issues, and writing that after the primary and wishing that he would calm things down a little bit. So I appreciate all that you guys do as well.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.